link this video in the description, but I have some complaints, okay? There's two women talking. I have several complaints, but let's go over the two ones first. And by several, I mean, I probably will eventually have several complaints since it's like an hour long, and they're two women that I politically disagree with. They're women, so of course, of course. So let's go into it. So basically, at one point, Kirsha talks about how men and women are symbiotic, like symbiotic parasites. So of course, I basically take this in the most negative way possible because political person I disagree with, but also just I just don't like this argument. Yeah, technically women can be useless and so on and so forth, but I don't like putting them in that position, especially because it's like, oh, men have a responsibility, a duty to take care of me, and so on and so forth. It's like, yes and no. That obligation is self imposed, and men, you have to be desirable enough for men to do that, and a man has to be good enough to do that in the first place. Eh, I wouldn't argue that our relationship is symbiotic or inherently symbiotic because obviously you got relationships that are inherently negative, like what's that cuck's name again? Idubs. I mean, I would say his soul is being drained by that ugly succubus, but that's another story entirely, and that's completely irrelevant. Yeah, in large part, men and women's relationships that are beneficial have basically built civilization. And she's like, oh, I don't want things to fall into anarchy. And I'm just sitting here like, oh my God. Okay, so the normie and the tanky or communist definition of anarchy is what most people are talking about when they say anarchy, which is to say, no authority, no rules, never. The problem with that is that literally cannot exist because it fucking can't. If you have no rules, then someone's going to come in and establish rules because that's just that's warlords exist, right? That's how the world works essentially. So obviously you got volunteerism, which is the anarchism that I'm a part of, which basically just means the standard, oh, I don't know, we establish a system that basically, what is it called again? The anarchy that I fall under is, what do you call it? No centralized authority. That's what it is. So there's no major government. There's only tiny miniature authorities competing with each other for people's favor and competition will actually it will just root out corruption because then if you have to compete with another city, then private city model for money and for people for people that work for it and all that work for your work to maintain your cities and whatnot, then if you actually have to earn that hypothetically, then that means that you're going to want to build a private city model that is attractive towards people. So you're going to get rid of a lot of the degeneracy and so on and so forth. So in other words, if the government has to compete with each other with another government, and that other government is like its next door neighbor and so on and so forth, it basically gets rid of corruption, like 99% of corruption, because they have to compete with each other. In the same vein, that's true of like competition and the free market. I know that there's a lot of corruption now because we live in an age where like there's not really a free market. I mean, there's a lot of, and that's the thing. Whenever someone argues, oh, what about the corruption? It's like, okay, well, the reality is that we live under some semblance of socialism. If you live currently, you're living with the government fucking with the free market, basically, in one way or another. Therefore, you live under socialism to some degree. And that's it. That's the problem. So yeah, no centralized authority means competition. Competition means better and presumably more ethical practices. Better, quality and so on and so forth. And that's basically what I believe in. That's what I'm believing in. That's why I'm an anarcho-capitalist, and anarcho-communists are blatantly delusional. Next point. She goes on about how also anarchy under the normie definition and the commie definition just doesn't fucking work. Also, communists define themselves as stateless, classless, whatever. Like, there's basically they define themselves as authoritarian, but also opposing authoritarianism. The problem is that definition just doesn't work because it's impossible to be something and not be something at the same fucking time in the way that they're describing it. And of course, you also have socialists, which are a bit more honest because they're like, oh, it's authoritarianism, but it will be a good thing. When you're in your government regulated cuck shed and raped and your children are raped, it's magically a good thing because the means of production are shared, and thus you're living in a utopia now. And then fascists just basically are more honest about it. They're like, yeah, a lot, or well, they're also kind of biased if I'm not mistaken. So like, some people, well, are fascists different? I mean, I'm pretty sure that most people are still suffering, right? Yeah. It's just with Hitler, he dodged the logical conclusion of fascism, well, all forms of socialism, really, and communism by natural extension, by starting a war with the entire world. So he could basically blame all the economic failures that were due to socialism on, the war. But that's another thing entirely. He practiced socialist policies to a massive degree, and for that reason, his country became an economic failure. And so he had to blame it on something, so he started a war. I think it's a bit more complicated than that, but I think that that is one of the reasons why World War II happened, if I'm not mistaken. That and the economy was already bad. I mean, World War One happened and the economy was shit. So yeah, they had a lot of problems because of that. So the Nazi Germany utopia is bullshit. But that aside, we're going over the next point where Shuan Head says, oh, the only people benefiting from this is the rich and powerful. Like Carmelo Anthony didn't get 35 years instead of life in prison or death sentence because, oh, I don't know, he's black in a supposed white supremacist country, by the way. Even though, again, there's clear bias against white people and bias in favor of black people. And a huge part of that is Carmelo Anthony getting a lighter sentence than he fucking deserved. And, but the rich and powerful are getting away with it. And it's like, yeah, but Carmelo Anthony was like middle class. He wasn't rich. Fuck off, shoe on head. This is some bullshit. You know it. Oh, but he became rich. Yeah, after that, he became a little bit rich. The point I'm trying to make here is the idea that, ooh, the rich and powerful are the only ones benefiting is some bullshit. It's just, again, it's just shoe on head. Just, and this is why I refuse to watch her and shit and give her credit for stuff. Instead, I talk shit to her. Because she's just really tugging at that shitlib bullshit perspective till the day she dies. I swear to God, man. She could be proven 10,000% wrong. It could be proven all wrong in front of her fucking face. And she'd still say, no. Another thing that I feel bad about Kirsha, for Kirsha, because she was told apparently in like schools or something. I wasn't told this, so from my perspective, I'm like, the fuck, is she on about? And I'm like, oh, apparently millennials actually dealt with this, and I guess Zoomers dealt with this or whatever. But I'm just sitting here like I've never dealt with this a moment in my life. And this is what I mean by I had good teachers. You may think, oh, this or that. I had like one teacher that would rant about Trump. Every single other one would, just stop. They wouldn't be a fucking commie or shit lib. I mean, one of them was a shit lib, but she was all right. Yeah, and then the other one just ranted about Trump, and that's about it. She didn't really mention politics unless I brought it up, so it's like whatever. And I would say something massively retarded, and she'd be like, "No, no, no, no," and then she would give me her shitlib perspective that was slightly retarded, but like still better ultimately. Trying to understand things, I guess. But regardless, this shitlib perspective of like, oh, the rich and powerful. It's like, yes, no, obviously you got the decadent elite, but then you also got, again, black activists and black people who are benefiting off of this. You got the fucking BLM buying their $1 million mansions and bullshit. It's very clearly a lot of people are benefiting from this. And a lot of them are just communists. If you want someone to blame, it's communists, not the rich and powerful. The rich and powerful are commies. You know, I mean, it's a bit more complicated than that. The Jews are involved with this. I'm not saying they aren't. I know a lot of people look, oh, because there's Jewish corruption, it's always Jewish people. And I'm like, yeah, that one white guy living in California, Gavin Newsom, that the Groypers, fit on everything. It's like, yeah, he's massively responsible. And again, I think a large portion of what happened with World War II is Hitler. And I'm not a historian, by the way. This is just me piecing certain pieces together. Hitler had to deal with Jewish communism, so he was just, he became a white communist, so to speak. Gay race, Jewish, black, gay, communism. He had to deal with that, so he flipped the scripts, and now we're dealing with all the bullshit that, Hitler and Germany had to deal with back in the day. Because, I don't know, we're just not allowed to have nice things. Unless we deal with the communist scum. But, deal with them properly, I guess, we have to neutralize these threats. Neutralize doesn't mean kill, by the way. I need to specify that because I don't know. I think some people might not know what I'm saying. I'm saying we need to make these people utterly impudent. Also, there are fates worse than death for those who think I'm going soft. But yeah, I have many opinions to unleash upon the world. I think that Kirscha's perspective is a little bit better because, like, she's not wrong. Police being purposefully incompetent during BLM, allowing the poor black people and poor white people or whatever, primarily black people, Antifa, all these fucking scumbags to burn down our country. They allowed to do that. They allowed them to do that. And I'm pretty sure not all of them were fucking rich or daddies or mommy's rich little baby boy or girl. I'm pretty sure that's not the case. I don't know. I'm just tired of bullshit, but I don't really hate Kirscha on this. It's hard for me to be like, yeah, sure, Kirscha. Because she has this equality position, like, oh, everyone should be treated equally. And I'm like, I've heard that for a long time. And that's the one that I'm like, that's a grift. All the prejudice from plus power shit is obvious, That's obvious. but equality is not really obvious to people because it's like there's some semblance of truth there, but it's vapid. It's like, yeah, sure, you should treat people fairly, but I don't know about equally because when there's a rapist and they're trying to rape people, you're probably not going to be like, treating them like they're your neighbor or your friend or family member and so on and so forth. You're probably going to put them down if necessary and or neutralize the threat in whatever ways is appropriate or not even appropriate. But my point is that regardless of whatever your opinion is on that matter, you're probably not going to treat them like like they're equally to other people. And that's my point. Is that equal? And this is a great example of my point because equity is a thing where where the communists try to take the words equality and justice and not only fuse them together like they're the same shit, but they also try to like use it as a new definition, as a way to replace it. Because once we have these replacement words, it's a lot easier to subvert people to their position. And that's why I really hate equality and the equalist mindset, to put it simply. I'm gonna fucking put Amon as the fucking thumbnail. That's the perfect one. That's the shit lib aspect that kind of annoys me with Kirsha and a lot of people that are former shit libs and whatnot. At least, that rubs me the wrong way. I know they probably don't mean anything by it because, obviously they don't. Right, they just want equal justice, or in other words, they want fairness above all else. And that's fair, It's quite literally fair. Either way, I gotta alter my deck because I've been playing the raw. What I'm curious if Slifer Shining Sark with Dark Magician is like any good, or if I can make it any good. So, have a good one.